Would you want to own something that once belonged to a cannibal? How about owning a letter written by a serial killer? For some, collecting these sorts of items is their hobby, and they've managed to pick up some truly unique pieces. But why do people collect these kinds of things, and where do they get it from? Let's take a look together and explore this unusual and controversial hobby. This is Oddstrosity. Let's reset what's expected. People all over the world find joy in the hobby of collecting. While some collectors search for popular things like Pokemon cards or Funko Pops, others have set their sights on something less typical: Murderabilia. Murderabilia pieces are items that were owned or made by criminals, or artifacts closely associated with a crime. While interest in such items may seem unusual, the hunt for these kinds of pieces can be exciting due to each item's rarity and historical significance. There's also the morbid fascination to it, as collectors have expressed the thrill they get while examining something that was once in the hands of a notorious criminal, like, for example, an original painting by serial killer and sexual predator John Wayne Gacy. Gacy's series of Pogo the Clown paintings are some of the most recognizable pieces in the Murderabilia hobby. Gacy himself had started selling these and his other paintings from out of his prison cell in the late 80s, but in the following years he formed a business partnership with someone outside of prison. Rick Staten had established a mail-order business called Grindhouse Graphics, and through that, he started selling Gacy's artwork, helping him reach a wider market. Staten made connections with other infamous figures as well, and soon boasted quite the catalog of inmate art, until he closed up shop in the mid-90s. Though Staten would move on to other things, the market for these sorts of items has continued to grow in popularity over time. Andy Kahn has spent years observing this community. In fact, he's the one who coined the term Murderabilia. "I came up with a cool, crafty name for this wacky new business," he explained. Referring to the Murderabilia market, he observed that most people just have no idea how big this is. It's shocking. But just how big is it? How widespread and prevalent has selling Murderabilia become? Where do people buy Murderabilia? As with any collection, items can be bought and traded peer-to-peer, though it's not always easy to find others around you who share this taboo interest. Of course, there's the online market, with thousands of items ready to be sold. Other collectors go straight to the source, connecting with prisoners themselves. William Harder is someone who has done all of the above. It started after he spent 2 years in state prison, where he gained a new outlook, viewing inmates as any other person. After he was paroled, he began writing letter after letter to different prisoners, making new pen pals and friends. He then started traveling to several different prisons to meet these people in person. The first inmate he visited was serial killer Richard Ramirez, aka the Night Stalker, and from there Harder's passion intensified, meeting up with more and more people. "I met Manson," Harder recalled enthusiastically. "I mean, sorry, I hate to sound starstruck, it is what it is. You know, not very many people get to say that they've met him, and I have." For those not looking to get so deeply involved, or if you're looking to buy something from someone who's no longer around, online shopping can be useful. Mainstream sites like Etsy offer some murderabilia pieces, though their selection can be limited. In 2001, eBay updated their policy to restrict sellers from selling things that promote or glorify violence or violent acts, or are associated with individuals who are notorious for committing violent acts. Some interesting items can still pop up from time to time, but sellers have to exercise caution when selling these sorts of things on eBay. In 2005, a site called Murder Auction was launched, which is similar to eBay, but specifically catered to true crime fans. It was started by Todd Bohannon, who developed an interest in true crime as a teen when he'd spend time at the county jail with his dad, who was a deputy sheriff. Bohannon then began collecting murderabilia when he was 13, after receiving a letter directly from Charles Manson. As exciting as this venture may have seemed, Bohannon claimed to have received regular death threats after launching Murder Auction, all from people who were disgusted by murderabilia. In 2008, Harder became the co-owner of the site, which was obviously a natural fit for him, and in the following year, he bought the site altogether from Bohannon. Murder Auction hosts a huge variety of items in dozens of categories, listed by users from around the globe. Things like a tape player owned by serial killer and necrophile Dennis Nielsen, a strand of hair from Richard Ramirez, or eating utensils from cannibal Armin Meiwes. Another major site is Cult Collectibles, operated by Taylor James. He had been interested in true crime for years, but his fascination really kicked off while learning about the People's Temple, the cult led by Jim Jones. James started collecting everything he could find related to the case, including newspapers, books, and even original stationery from the organization itself. When he couldn't find any other items related to the People's Temple, the thrill of the hunt led him to start collecting from other cults like Heaven's Gate and the Branch Davidians. Around the time that the COVID-19 pandemic hit, James had just recently quit his job, and he was unable to return to working a regular job due to the sudden quarantine. He had an eBay store on the side though, so in the meantime he started putting more energy into that. At one point he listed some O.J. Simpson pogs on his eBay store, but eBay took the listing down due to them being associated with Simpson's controversial trial and murder accusations. This, combined with the quarantine, got James to seriously consider starting his own site, where he'd be able to sell, trade, and network with other true crime fans easier. Soon enough, Cult Collectibles was up and running, which was popular right off the bat according to James. He soon committed to working on the site full-time, and since its inception, it has grown exponentially over the years. The site received a lot of media coverage for offering items like Jeffrey Dahmer's glasses and even the urn that once held his cremated remains. Scrolling through the site, one will find page after page of other impressive and rare artifacts for sale. Murder Auction and Cult Collectibles are far from being the only sites offering murderabilia, though. Supernaut offers numerous pieces from heavy hitters like Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Kaczynski, and many, many more. Whether you're looking for a pair of shoes from Eileen Wuornos or an original painting by Henry Lee Lucas, you'll never know what you'll find lurking on this site. Serial Killers Inc. also has a vast selection of different items for sale, including several different paintings by Gacy and the original prison ID for Mark David Chapman, the man who shot John Lennon. I have been intrigued by true crime since an early age, described the site's owner, Eric Haller. I was always reading true crime books and learning about the latest serial killers. I soon began writing infamous men and women and collecting and selling their artwork and signed items. The list of sites from around the world goes on, so clearly there's a lot of interest in this hobby. Andy Kahn was evidently right about it being a big deal, much to his dismay. As I mentioned before, he was the one who coined the term murderabilia, but it stemmed from his advocacy against the community. Kahn insisted that buying and selling true crime relics was immoral and should be illegal, and he was very vocal about it. This debate is as old as the hobby itself. Is it or is it not okay to collect murderabilia? There's been a lot of controversy and discussion surrounding the unorthodox nature of collecting things from mass shooters, cannibals, predators, and such. In the US, there's been efforts to outlaw the sales of these sorts of items, notably the Son of Sam laws, named after the alias of serial killer David Berkowitz. More specifically, these laws intended to keep criminals from profiting off of their infamy, having any proceeds instead go to the victims. These laws have been criticized for encroaching on people's freedom of speech, though, so trying to enforce them has been awkward to say the least. Nevertheless, Andy Kahn has long been a supporter of Son of Sam laws. Throughout his life, he's done a lot of professional work advocating for the rights of victims. I'm a firm believer in free enterprise and capitalism, but I'm also a believer that no one should be able to rob, sexually assault, or murder and turn around and then make a buck off of it, Kahn explained. He's also been a significant figure in the battle to condemn murderabilia collecting in general, managing to bring the hobby out from the underground and giving it more exposure to the general public. Kahn's crusade was sparked decades ago when he had read an article about a convicted killer who had been exploiting their infamy to sell their own artwork, much like Gacy. Kahn was appalled to learn that a market for such items existed and was determined to do something about it. In the years since, he's given public talks and interviews on the subject, looking to create awareness and hoping to generate tighter laws that would ban the sale of these sorts of items. Whether or not something's legal is one thing, but is it morally sound to buy or sell murderabilia? Kahn doesn't think so, stating, "We owe victims the dignity and respect to shut this down." Even in transactions where the incarcerated didn't monetarily profit, he felt that their egos would be fed, knowing that a demand existed for their items, which Kahn views as morally problematic as well. Of course, as evident by the hobby's continued existence, not everyone shares this view. As Eric Haller explained, it's a dark history, but it is part of our history. Why not have these items, study these items, preserve these items for future generations? Maybe one day find out why murderers do what they do. He also explained that he doesn't feel that murderabilia glorifies crime, noting that the media does a fine job of that on its own. This sentiment has been shared by many others in the community. While pointing to a stack of mainstream publications such as Life magazine, Rick Staten explained that the people that really glorify murderers and bad guys and serial killers, these are the guys that are at the top of the heap as far as I'm concerned. They had made celebrities out of them. Todd Bohannon scoffed. Television stations, publishing houses, and production companies make millions selling their products, but I get criticized for selling an autograph. Both Taylor James and William Harder have described how they've kept their heads down and aren't looking for controversy or looking to offend anyone, that they're in it just for the love of the hobby and to make a living. There's a lot of people who are pretty offended by it and have an issue with it, which I can totally understand. I never argue against that with somebody who is affected by it in that way, James reasoned, adding that he feels his actions benefit historical documentation as well. I'm preserving stuff that would otherwise get destroyed, or people wouldn't know about it. I've had a lot of previously unknown information licensed out to documentaries or published places. Harder had this suggestion: don't like it, don't buy it. I don't advertise for my website, I don't make anybody come. This is capitalism, this is America. I'm sorry, but I'm not, you know? Ultimately, it's subjective whether or not this hobby is morally acceptable, though as long as Murderabilia continues to attract buyers, controversy will surely follow. On the murder auction site, beneath their logo reads the words, "Every man has to have a hobby." Everybody has something they like to do in their free time, even if it's outside the norm, like collecting oddities, creating taxidermy, or investigating the paranormal. There's something about the unusual side of life that many find alluring, these bizarre subjects that rest on the fringe of what's typically considered natural. For some, that's part of the appeal of Murderabilia. It's another fascinating, albeit dark, corner of life, and it seems that this hobby will continue for years to come. This has been Oddstrosity. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think of this hobby, but please keep all discussions respectful. Do you or someone you know collect Murderabilia? Have you seen one of Andy Kahn's live presentations? What's the weirdest thing you've ever seen for sale? Anyways, thanks again for watching. Join me next time as we once again reset what's expected.